Hey guys, Zyger here. Just wanted to bring you an update on the latest Diablo 3 patch for PTR 2.6.4. So Blizzard recently announced that they would drop a new patch on PTR for Diablo 3 that made many changes. A lot of them are ease of life changes, and some of them are new additions, but mostly it's tweaking values for set pieces. So let's get into this. First of all, I've been really critical of Blizzard for failing to address Diablo 3 for a long time, so I'm really glad about this change, as it seems as if some attention is being paid to this game still. I think the changes are too far and few between, but I will take what I can get. So the general philosophy behind this is that Blizzard wanted to include a few frequently asked quality of life changes and focus on better celebrating and indicating primal legendary drops. So a few of the ease of life things was 5 additional armor tabs have been added. That's very good. If you want to have multiple sets, it's really important. Greater Rift keystones are now stored in the materials tab. That's a really minor change, but that's fine. Now, here's one I think is really cool, is that primal legendaries are now marked by a red beam when they drop. Now, this is quite a big improvement, because what the experience was prior to this is a primal legendary would just look like any other legendary that dropped. You'd see the indicator on the screen, you'd pick it up. You might not even realize that it's a primal until you look closer at the stats, but now it's red, so this is going to just kind of amp up the excitement factor a little bit when that happens. I think this is a really good change, because right away you'll know if something's primal. You'll want to check those stats real quick, or you'll want to check the legendary real quick to see the stats. Primal legendaries now have a red border and updated background on their icons. Again, that will help differentiate. I think that's really good. So, Greater Rift philosophy. Here is one of the most major changes, is Blizzard has stopped allowing players to allocate their Paragon points to different categories while in a Greater Rift. So the primary reason for this seems to be that Corpse Lance Necromancer builds would have macros where players would create macros that would switch all of their Paragon points from intelligence to vitality and vice versa at a drop of a button. So this made it easier to defeat Rift Guardians, and there's kind of a cooldown with that build where you basically didn't even do anything for, I think it was like 25 or 30 seconds, and then you poured in all the damage to mobs. So this is just restricting that. Fair enough. I think that's fine. That won't impact the vast majority of players, and I think that philosophy is fine. Now, for Season 16, Blizzard has decided to make a new seasonal theme. So if you haven't been following, the first season theme that they made was Double Treasure Goblins, and I was completely underwhelmed by this. I'm like, whatever, this is just a random nicety that almost no one will care about, and really it won't have too much effect on the game, and it didn't. And in the second season, Blizzard decided to make the theme based upon double rewards from bounties. Again, very underwhelming. A lot of players don't even do bounties after they get the requisite items for their cube, and it's just kind of a nonsensical change that didn't really impact the game. But this season's a little bit different. So they're giving all season characters a buff for the Ring of Royal Grandeur. So if you're not familiar, what the Ring of Royal Grandeur does is it allows you to get set bonuses from items by having one less than that set bonus's required bonus. So for instance, if a set of armor has a 4-piece set bonus, you only need 3 pieces of armor. Now this doesn't affect sets that have 2 pieces of armor. You still have to have 2 to get the 2-piece set bonus on this. But this is a pretty big deal. I mean, that's a very good piece of gear in Diablo 3, and a lot of builds use it. So I see the major effect of this being that most players will actually just have a ring slot freed up that used to have a Ring of Royal Grandeur. A lot of times it's going to become Convention of Elements for extra burst damage, or it's going to become Unity for more mitigation. Probably one of those 2 rings is going to be the most commonly replaced outcome of not having to equip a Ring of Royal Grandeur. but very good change. I think it will affect the greater rift level pushes that you're able to do a little bit, but it shouldn't be too major. Nonetheless, I like where they're going here. I think this is a good change. It was a very good item to pick. If you're going to pick any item in the game to give a season-based buff, I think that's actually a really good choice. So it won't impact all the builds. It will impact a lot of the builds, and good choice. So I'll give credit where credit's due. That was a good choice. All right, class set changes. So Blizzard states right here that they're taking another tuning pass across sets to improve class and set diversity at a higher level. Mostly what we've seen here is that each class really has a few cookie cutter builds, and usually it's one of those builds that really triumphs over the others in greater rifts. For instance, the easiest example of this is Crusaders. The Condemn build is by far the best Crusader build, and it's not even particularly close. So what Blizzard wants to do is address that, and they seek to address that not by making negative and positive adjustments. It seems like they want to bring the other sets up to the levels of the powerful sets. And this is kind of a philosophy view that Blizzard has had for quite some time. It seems rarer that they would nerf things than it is that they would buff things that they view as less powerful, which I think that's fine. Another part of this is instead of changing actual damage rates and damage metrics of individual abilities that each class has, they change the armor. So I don't necessarily agree with that all the time. I think that makes it so that not much changes as far as gearing. Everything is almost based on the set rather than the abilities you use. And it just doesn't allow for a lot of build diversity, but at least if they can get to a place where multiple builds are at about the same level, that does create a little bit of innovation, a little bit of experimentation for players to see which sets fit together, etc. It'll be interesting this season with the Ring of Rollgrander buff built in. But it's a little bit of a shortcoming when you can consider that they're only addressing armor pieces rather than actual abilities. Just makes things a little bit more cookie cutter. But nonetheless, that's fine. I think it's a good thing overall to make it so that multiple sets are very respectable and very good. It's really hard for them to be able to do that. I think that they're trying to do that, but there'll always be something that is just a cut above the rest. One of the best ones is the Legacy of Nightmares set. So, for those unfamiliar, the Legacy of Nightmares set allows you to essentially equip all sorts of, ancient legendaries that are not part of other sets to increase damage. And the theory around it is you'll just have 2 rings, and that 2-ring set bonus gives you immense damage from what that you already have from ancient legendaries. Well, I really like this because 100 to 500% per legendary, this is a big buff, so I actually think that's really good. It's going to allow for some diversity there. Before a lot of the buffs, actually, Legacy of Nightmares set was really prevalent in some of the seasons. That goes back a while, though. That was probably like 2 to 3 years ago. I remember a lot of the Crusader builds were running a bombardment-based set where they used Legacy of Nightmares. And actually, I thought that was one of the most boring specs of the Crusader to play, but nonetheless, it was powerful at that time. But it's going to be interesting to see what else this produces. So I'll focus on Barbarian and Crusader here because I'm most familiar with them. Legacy of the Rancor, this is currently the most powerful Barbarian set. 6-piece bonus increase from 2,800% to 7,000%. So that is quite a big bump there to the Barbarian's most powerful set. Now, it isn't as powerful as, say, the Condemned Crusader build, so maybe that's a good buff. Mortal King's Call, set buff from 1,500% to 4,000% on the 6-piece bonus. I think this is a really good change also. Mortal Kings has basically not really been usable for quite a while, and this is a really good bump. Might of the Earth, this set, and Mortal Kings is one of my 2 favorite Barbarian sets, by the way. Might of the Earth, it's been pretty powerful for a while, but they're bumping the 6 set bonus to from 5,600% to 20,000%. So it's hard to even quantify how much damage this will be until you actually use it. Also, Blizzard has said these values aren't final. They reserve the right to tweak them while they're in the testing stage, etc. But that's a significant bump as well. Wrath of the Waste, the other one of the two, the other set that I consider one of my two favorite for Barb, that has been boosted from the 6-piece bonus 3,000% to 10,000%. So that's going to make the whirlwind damage a lot more powerful. So it's going to be interesting to see like which Barb set emerges from all this, and if they're roughly equivalent. I'm really interested in this because Barbarian's fun to play, and there are a lot of options. All right, Crusader. Thorns of the Invoker, 2-piece set bonus, 140 to 350, pretty significant there. That's, more than a double bump. But the 6-piece bonus has been increased 5,400 to 15,000%. So I think you're going to see more Thorns Crusaders now. And honestly, I don't think that build is very fun. It really is kind of like a tank and spank build where I don't feel like it adds that much variety to gameplay. Nonetheless, it was at one point very strong. It might be interesting to try out. Roland's Legacy. Here is one that I'm really excited about. The 4-piece set bonus has increased from 3,300 to 13,000%. Huge bump. That's like 4 times percentage-wise. Very interesting. And the 6-piece set bonus from 50% to 75%. So this might bring the sweep build back. I'm really interested in it. I thought that the sweep build was one of the most impressive and fun specs to play as a Crusader, and I had a lot of fun with it, so I'm going to definitely try this again. Seeker of Light, this was the best set in several seasons, and Blizzard's decided to tweak the 6-piece set bonus from 2,000 to 12,000, so a rate of 6 times the percent. That's going to make the hammers do a ton of damage. Not one of my favorite sets, but it was pretty good for quite a while. I noticed that they didn't really touch the Condemned set here, and they have reasons not to. It was the most powerful set, really, it seems like. So it's one of those things where, again, they want to bring the subpar sets up to the level of the viable sets. Demon Hunter tweaked almost all of those sets in the same way. I used to play Demon Hunter a little bit, not a ton, but Unhallowed Essence, I like that set a lot, and the Marauder set. These two sets are two of my favorites, so good to see tweaks there. I might try that out. Monk, I'm not that familiar with, but they did make some changes here. Ina's going to be powerful, it looks like. Exploding Palm might be back. There's quite a few things here that's kind of interesting. The Monkey King's Garb, I think, is the spec that most of the solo Greater Rifters use. They tweaked that one a little bit, but not a lot, probably because it's considered, the only great one. Necromancer is the one class that they did not touch much when it came to armor bonuses. But Trag'Oul's Avatar, they did change that damage to be a little bit higher for the 6-piece set bonus. The reason why I feel they didn't touch Necromancer and affect it as much with this PTR buffing is because Necromancer is really powerful for farming runs, and the support Necromancer is also really powerful. So what you have right now on the servers is, they sometimes call them rat runs. They have 2 Rathma Necromancers and 2 support class just running, getting lots of experience very quickly in 4-man groups, and that's really the only run that is done. Rathma's considered really powerful. Trag'Oul's is too, but maybe they wanted to give that a little bit of a boost because Corpse Lance is not going to be probably quite as good now that they're not allowing you to change the Paragon. Witch Doctor, I'm not as in the know about how that's being affected, but they definitely tweaked some bonuses here. And Wizard, they also made similar tweaks to 3 sets. So overall, I think this is a good step in the right direction for Diablo 3. I'm glad that Blizzard's devoting some resources back to the game, considering it's one of the highest selling games of all time, and it's just really depressing to see the game in the state it is, given that it was such a popular game, but Blizzard just doesn't invest much into it because it doesn't make them, regular profit as much as, say, World of Warcraft, which makes them monthly profit based on subscription. So it's good to see them directing a little bit more attention back to Diablo 3. Ultimately, we'd all like to see Diablo 4 announced. I think that will happen within the next year, or if not, by BlizzCon of next year. But this will help, tide us over a little bit. I will come back to Diablo 3 and play it a little bit, at least Barbarian and Crusader. I think that I'll enjoy it for a little bit. I'm really interested to see some of the experimentation that comes out of the PTR, because that's probably one of my favorite facets of Diablo 3. It might be my very favorite. Just the experimentation that can come from linking different pieces of gear together in different builds and different sets and finding out what's viable and what's not. It'll be interesting to see some streams of Diablo 3 players testing that out. I'll probably give it a try myself. So that's a synopsis on 2.6.4. I think it's a good change. It's not the greatest because there's no content being added, and really, I think the fans deserve some content, whether it be new maps, kind of like a new rifting system or something like that, or some kind of thing to draw players that have left the game back into the game, because I don't know about you guys, but I look at my Battle.net friends list and literally no one plays Diablo 3. Lots of people play Blizzard games, but it's basically no one playing Diablo 3, and I know that can't be an aberration. That has to be true across the board based on what I've heard from other gamers, including former Diablo 3 enthusiasts. So, good patch. They should add some more content. If they don't have another expansion for this game, looking forward to Diablo 4. But this is a pretty good step in the right direction. So, hope you enjoyed this video, everyone. If you liked the video, check out my others, and have a good one.